going to go live and cut into this.
You're a lifelong keeper or just getting started? Help us encourage responsible keeping, conservation, and public education in the interest of keeping our reptiles safe and healthy as we protect them for future generations. You're invited to spend time with us as we experience these awesome animals together on Intrepid Exotics.
Hey everybody, welcome to Intrepid Exotics' very first live stream. So this should be really interesting today. We're using a streaming program I've never used before, and the topic that we're going to be broaching today is problematic genetics in snakes. So morphs and so forth have never been my strong suit, and so it should be really interesting. I have really good backup today. And let me check out a couple. Okay. Got Jay Hill in here. How you doing, man? Hey, Nicole's here. Lady Tis Exotics. Was just in on a live stream with her earlier today. Really awesome person. I'm going to go ahead and leave a link for her channel in there as well, too. So you guys can all check her out. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from her as we go. So you'll have to bear with me. I've got a bunch of notes here. So the topic today is problematic reptile morphs. And you hear a lot about it. I think the one that folks are most familiar with is the spider gene and ball pythons and so forth. And you know, you hear a lot of folks, a lot of breeders and so forth that have got different opinions one way or the other. And those opinions are, you know, just from experience, from what you see and so forth after you've bred the animals. Well, today we've got Christina Hill with us, and she is a biologist who got her degree from UNC Chapel Hill. And she's currently a researcher in genetics and genomics. And she specializes in reptiles, so we get a chance to get some firsthand information about what some of these morphs do and what they consist of. So we're going to go ahead and introduce you to Christina. Hey.
Hi everyone.
Yeah. So I've known Christina for a little while now. She's been a supporter of the channel, you know, helped me along as I've been getting started, and she's really she makes herself available to pick her brain whenever we need to.
I try to anyway.
All right. So let's see. Let me try and keep up with who's coming in. Fago, there you are. Yep, I see Christina in there. It's kind of weird seeing your name on there and running the stream at the same time. I'm used to just jumping into chat and saying, hey, how you doing? But
that's true.
Right. Okay, William Rosenberg's here. Okay, guys. So, and I know a lot of the folks that I've got in right now, you know, your breeders, your keepers, and so forth already. But for some of the folks that are going to be coming in and, you know, watching this at a later date, there's, when we talk about reptiles anymore, and you didn't see it so much when, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago when they were first coming over, but seeing it really commonly today, specifically with ball pythons. And this right here, you know, if you're a layman and you're looking at these snakes right here, you may think these are all different snakes. You know, these are all morphs, different genetics of ball pythons, so it's the same species, and you can see they're dramatically different there. And that's some of the, you know, we're going to talk about today some of the reasons why that is, and you know, like I said, some of the morphs and some of the genetics that can cause problems in these guys, and what those problems actually are. Same thing with you know, these are both reticulated pythons. And, you know, just they look like completely different animals at a glance until you actually start looking at the body structure on them, you know, similar patterns and so forth. But those of us that keep them recognize that, whereas, you know, your layman's may not. And that kind of turns into an issue when you're talking about venomous snake identification. And this is even for for people that have been keeping for a while. If you don't keep venomous snakes and you're not up to speed with genetics, these are all copperheads. We're taught to recognize the the Hershey's Kiss pattern from the side and the hourglass pattern from the top on these guys, but you can see there's a visual morph right there that has got the pinstripe down the side, the albinos. So you could be walking along and not even recognize it as a copperhead and find yourself in trouble. So that's kind of what we wanted to go into a little bit today. And just so you guys know, we will get to any super chats that come in. We'll get to all of those, and we'll do our best to keep up with all the questions as they come in. But let's see here. So let's talk a little bit. Christina, what's so we know you do genetic research, and there's a difference between genetics and genomics, which may come up.
Yes.
Could you kind of explain a little bit what the difference is between those?
So genetics is the study of a gene or a particular gene interaction with another gene, or that is where you're just studying the isolation of that gene and the role that gene plays. Mm-hmm. Genomics is the study of the entire genome,
right,
and how the genome interacts, works together, how mutations change the structure of the genome, things of that nature.
Right. Okay. So you're pretty much the genetics is the smaller scale, more specific study, where genomics is the overall, probably closer to what breeders will see and deal with when they're trying to produce animals and so forth, trying to interbreed.
Correct. Genomics is a field that's still rapidly developing. We use a lot of high throughput sequencing to be able to map particular SNPs or code mm-hmm. of DNA to a reference genome, and we can bioinformatically determine what those SNPs are doing and how they're changing the structure of the genome, expression of genes, things of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. My computer's wanting to make noise on me now. Stop it. So
I turned my notifications off so mine wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I know. That was the only thing that I'd forgotten to do. So one thing that I wanted to take a second to mention too is that I want to pay particular attention to kind of staying on the 50-yard line as far as any opinions on whether a morph is good or bad. You hear a lot of people saying, don't breed spiders because it's just going to cause all kinds of issues with them and so forth. And then you'll have other people, and I mean, I've had a spider ball python for a while too, that didn't really have any quality of life issues. So,
right.
It's not one of those things where you can just say, it's definitely bad or it's definitely good, because we just don't know enough about it yet.
I think people want to, but as a scientist, we are very used to following the data. We don't go into an experiment trying to get a result. We go into an experiment with a question.
Right.
And then the answer we find through whatever the data is.
Right.
And so this is how I would like to see us approaching what is a problematic gene. How do we know whether it's problematic? And what criteria are we using to determine that?
Right. Yeah, and it's so hard to tell if you don't actually study it, because there could be other factors in there. You could breed a couple spider ball pythons or whatnot, and one of them come out with a deformity that is completely unrelated to that gene, but you don't know unless you go in there and do the research on it.
Absolutely, which is another reason why in the reptile world, and I understand because we don't have the science to back it, but it's devastating for me as a keeper to know that the science just isn't out there, and there's not enough of a demand, and that's why the science isn't out there. We don't have full genome sequencing
Right.
for full references for these guys, so we don't know. Would in the world, in the breeding world, we generally call a spider gene, but
Right.
it's not. It's a morph. We really don't know what genes or gene interactions that morph is, what genes are responsible for that morph.
Right. Cool. Well, there's I'd seen something as I was kind of reading through everything. Like, do you have a really good example of something that we do know for sure, that a specific gene with a specific morph, you know, you get that people may breed in to get a certain color pattern and so forth. Some physical characteristics or physical deformity or abnormality that's specifically tied to that. I mean, do we have a whole lot of those that we can for certain say, you know, if you breed this with these outward appearances, it's going to translate to, you know, having these specific problems with them just about every time?
So, no, we don't have that, with the exception of a paper that was put out, I think it was 2020, on the lemon frost allele in a leopard gecko.
Right.
They were able to do 4 genetics in the study, where they crossed animals that carried and animals that didn't carry that particular allele, and all of the offspring with the lemon frost allele developed tumors by the age of 5 years.
Really?
Yes. We do not have comparable studies like that in snakes, which is just really frustrating.
Right, right. I mean, what do you think would have to happen before we could get something like that? I mean, it seems like most, and especially with as much as the reptile hobby's growing, and as much as it's hitting the news too. I mean, it seems like there would be good opportunities there to get some good press rather, and you know, start securing like research grants and things like that.
So that is the holdup. There's people that are interested in doing the studies, but it's a matter of, in the scientific world, there's just not the demand for these guys for this type of study to be subsidized by a grant.
Right.
So in order for us, if I as a researcher want to do a study like this, I have to apply for a grant. Grant money is very limited, of course.
Right.
And they're going to, whether it's NSF or NIH, whoever's going to be funding me, they're going to put the money where the largest demand in the public is.
Right.
We're seeing that our own representatives aren't representing us as reptile keepers because they don't understand that there's a demand.
Right.
And if we can't get them to understand, then trying to get scientific funding and the heads of those companies, it's almost impossible at this point.
Right.
So what we need to do is we need to have a higher demand. We need to have other people asking these questions. We need to have people like me who are there in the field communicating that the data needs to, there's a need for the data, there's a desire for the data, and there's a desire to, on our behalf, to get that data.
Right. Yeah, you know, it'd be really cool if we could get USARC built up to the point where we could have a division, a research division of USARC. That would be ideal, I think.
Yes, it would. Yes. That would actually be a dream for me. I think that would be an awesome opportunity for us to incite desire in young people to be able to fund them for like summer research, to be able to go out and collect field data for us. That would be awesome.
Yeah. It's all about generating more public awareness and getting more people involved in the hobby. I mean, it's, you know, getting the numbers up. That's
So
one thing
I
that
see
I.
that we have a question
Oh yeah, what do we got
from
here?
William Rosenberg about jaguar reticulated pythons,
Okay, let's see here.
and that they seem to have some neurological issues.
Let's see. How do I've got to figure out how to put these messages up in the window here. So as I'm learning this,
That's perfectly fine. So William is correct in the manner that we have anecdotal evidence, meaning people have observed that retics with the jaguar morph do tend to have or display some issues similar to the wobble in spiders, where they seem to have issues knowing which way is necessarily up, and their lateral and dorsal grid.
all right.
However, the neurological issues is a really wide field. So what does that mean to have a neurological issue? So if a human is diagnosed with vertigo, that is also a neurological issue. I think whether or not to engage in breeding those animals is entirely up to, your ethics as a person. And I think we can't really make demands on anyone until we really do have the data to know what genes are actually responsible for this morph and what are the actual outcomes.
There we go.
As we actually do, there's 2 studies on spider morph royal pythons.
Yeah.
And they're not even in press yet. They're under review. And what's been found out of these 2 different studies, which we'll cover here shortly, I imagine, is that there's deformities in the inner ear of the spider morphs. So they have a deformity in the inner ear. How do we determine whether that affects their quality of life? Does that cause them pain? How do we know? Is that really relatively benign? How do we know?
All right.
Because we can't ask snakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean that would seem to me like being almost, born perpetually drunk. If your semicircular canals aren't working right, then I could see how that constant wobbling right there, but it would be real interesting to see what other effects that would have, outside of just that.
Yeah, so we would need someone to be able to fund a long-term study, and longevity studies are very rare in animal husbandry and care.
Right. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to do my level best here to figure out how to get these chats pulled over into the video here. But in the meantime, we'll see if we can. Let's see. So there was William's question. Oh, by the way, Mike from Herp Collectors is here, and I would post you up there, but like I said, I don't know how to do it yet. So.
Well, hi, Mike.
But yeah, Mike was in Nicole's live stream earlier. I just seen him for the first time. He is a ball python breeder down in Florida. Seems like a really good guy.
Okay.
Really happy to have him here. And let's see here. Jungle boas. Let's see. Demurals. Driver news. IBD and boas. Neurological response is broad, especially in IBD and boas. Have you got? What do you know about like boas and specifically in regards to anything that's any morphs that
we would say are definitively problematic.
Right.
So boas are probably the thing that I'm the least versed in.
Right.
So nothing is particularly coming to the top of my head right now, but that's,
Right.
again, boas are like my least versed.
Yeah, and I think they're probably gonna be that way for a while, actually, because I mean, there are boa morphs, but there's not nearly as many morphs that I'm familiar with as there are for retics and ball pythons and so forth. So, and
Yeah.
like
But
he
we
was,
do have several founded studies in other animals that there's relationship between iridophores, which are your pigmentation cells,
right,
one version of your pigmentation cells, that
right,
that the morphs that lighten the iridophores, there is correlation with tumor development, and that's
right,
with a number of different reptile species:
right.
colubrids, bearded dragons, um, iguanas.
I'd seen the leopard geckos that were,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that you were talking about earlier, where they had,
Yes.
what was it, like a 70-80% chance of something like that of developing those tumors over the course of a couple of years.
Yep. Yep. 80% chance.
Man, almost almost sounds like ferrets. Ferrets are known for developing those. Actually, the ones that we had, one of them ended up developing a big tumor as well before he passed. So,
It's unfortunate.
right,
Yeah. So, as far to my knowledge, I do not know of anything that I would consider problematic in boas. But again, that's not really my. I am least versed in
right,
boas of all snakes.
right. Let me look through here and see if I can find any more questions William had talked about. See, that's gonna really frustrate me now because I want to figure out how to get these things pushed over here so I can get these guys in. But
Well, while you're
we got to
working on
figure it
that,
out.
since we were referencing some of the neurological orders, can you pull up a couple of the images
Yeah.
from
Let's
the
see.
Schrank et al.?
Right. Do you want the MRI images or the
Yeah, the MRI images.
Okay. Yeah, let me pull up this one first. And if you need any of the other two,
Okay.
then just let me know and I can
Yeah,
switch
I need
over.
the other. I need the wild type first because these are spider morphs. So this is
Okay.
what the wild type inner ear looks like. You can see inside these red circles the standard opening where they can actually get the reverb, and that helps them with their lateral grid.
Right.
And then if you look over to the mutants, which you had up first,
Okay. This one right here.
yeah. So you can see that the mutants do not have that same opening. They actually have what is just largely a solid structure.
Right. Yeah, I'll go back and look at the old one. Oh wait, that's not it. That's it.
Right.
So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
you're
And you
looking
can
at
go
the
ahead to the. Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah. So you can see
You're
the
looking at these inside these red circles.
right. And those are the normals, right?
That is, yes, that is a
Right.
normal skull structure.
Right. And then you look over to um the spider genes and
Correct.
that whole
The
structure
spider
right there looks a
morphs.
lot different. Yeah. Spider morphs. I gotcha.
Yes. So yeah, you can see that they're considerably different. They're also not, even within one individual animal, they're not symmetrical, that sort of thing. So how that would affect, so what the study does discuss is that we could show that there are deformities in the inner ear, and that likely could explain the
Right.
wobble that we see, but that this study is not enough to actually be able to determine, is this wobble due to this, and is this actually related to,
Right.
we've got correlation, but we can't say for sure that it's caused by
Hmm.
the spider morph.
Well, I mean that would at least put something to rest, anybody that's wondering, is there an actual impact with it? You know, if you can look at these genes and see specifically that, you know, you talk about the wobbles, you talk about the corkscrewing and things like that, and the stargazing, and, you know, if you can actually look at the MRIs and say, okay, these are definitive, you know, these are issues that they definitely have.
So yeah, and then being able to produce studies like this allow those of us who want to consume ethically, we can read these, we can get this information, we can look at these journals, articles ourselves, and make determinations for ourselves. I really get frustrated with the reptile community when people like to approach it as a one size fits all.
Right.
And I think there needs to be a lot more room for us to be able to make our own educated decisions.
Right. I mean, that's across the board in everything these days too. I mean,
That's true.
People are going to generate their opinions based on what, you know, a certain, you know, pigeonholed circumstance or something like that, any number of things. And, you know, once they get that opinion, you know, this morph is bad, you know, you shouldn't produce it. Unfortunately, a lot of times no amount of facts in the world really change their mind, and it puts them at odds with good breeders and so forth, you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, like I said, stuff like this, and, you know, as we go along on this channel too, you know, I'd like to keep doing stuff like this, just you know, kind of generating questions as we go, and you know, looking into getting actual answers to it, so that, you know, we can kind of kill some of the arguments a little bit, or at least, you know, let people know that there's more things to consider than just, you know, the one spider ball python that they saw that was acting funny, and now all of a sudden, you know, you got the opinion that they're all bad. So, you know, like I said,
and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I think that's something we can't determine yet, right? And I think that's something that it may not be the same answer for each person.
Right. Yeah, like I said, I mean, the one that I had really didn't see any problems with it at all. You know, it socialized up just about the same as all of my other animals. If anything else, it seemed a little bit more gregarious than some of them. But you know, every now and then it would just do something funny. But it really didn't seem like it affected its quality of life too much.
So I also see in the chat, William Rosenberg asked about red bearded dragons having neurological problems. So to my knowledge, no. That is, we have literally no data about this correlation or association between neurological disorders and beardies and particular colored morph.
No. Cool. What do we know about bearded dragons? Is there anything specifically that you guys have looked at with the different morphs and so forth? Because I mean, the only thing I've seen really health-wise about bearded dragons so far is, you know, just poor husbandry and things like that.
So that
give them...
we have a lot of established data on what maybe people call poor husbandry or ignorance, or however you would like to approach that. Right. The biggest threat to beardies that we know in keeping is lack of proper UV.
Right.
Yeah. And calcium supplementation, of course. So.
Yeah.
But we don't. So we do have correlative studies like the one that I was talking with you about, with the retivores found in, I think it was something over 60 different snake species and over 50 different lizard species.
Right.
But those are not sufficient to be able to say that that is that's causative, because these are samples. This is actually a study that was put out through a veterinary care journal. So these samples that are coming to this study are coming because they have the tumor issues.
Right.
So your sample size isn't great, and it's skewed because you're only going to see the problematic animals.
Yeah. Yeah, true. You gotta have a
so to my knowledge, we don't have anything that's causative, anything that we can say is causative for beardies with color morph. Sorry, did not mean to interrupt you, Tim.
Oh, no, you're fine. Interrupt me all you want. I wonder, and I haven't looked into this personally, but I understand some people have sent samples out for, I guess there's a couple labs that will do genetic testing on pets just to kind of nail
Absolutely.
down.
Oh, I cannot remember their name. It's in the chat. Oh, did you put it? Oh, my husband is letting me know that it's in the chat. There is a company, Rare Genetics, and so they do genetic studies. But oh yeah, Cotafago is actually talking about this, about working with Rare Genetics. So we have established being able to sex several species of snakes, not all, but that's in the works. As far as diagnostic testing, I believe that Rare Genetics is working on being able to do that, particularly for some of the more common diseases. But I don't think we're near being able to have diagnostics for problematic genes. We have to actually ID what those genes are first.
Right.
And then we can develop testing for them.
Yeah, because I would wonder if there would be any, because if you've got a place that's, accepting samples and doing testing for people to find out specifically what their genetics are, localities and whatnot, it would seem like if they were willing and able, I don't know if they do or not, to have their results or something public to where researchers could look at them, maybe.
Right. So I do believe that is I believe that's a plan of Rare Genetics. I don't know that they've quite gotten to that point. I can say that every genetic study that has been published in the last 20 years does all of their metadata, so all of their genomics is out there, and that is a particular area of research that would be a great place for us to start getting these genomic resources together, because we would just need a couple of bioinformaticists that have an idea of how to run programs and write their own scripts to be able to grab this metadata. There's so many homologous genes between humans and mice and snakes and flies that we can glean information from data that's already been put out, just finding what those isolates are in snakes.
Right. Let me see. Yeah, I'm still looking through here. Let's see. Malcolm had a question in here. Said, other than spiders, can you identify the other genes that have genetic traits we should look out for? So my take on that is maybe any other genes that have, like spiders are associated with the mutated semicircular canals. Are there other mutations that tie directly into other deformities and so forth?
So yeah, your standard things like jaguar are things that are very much in the air for snakes. White and yellow and leopard geckos, eclipse and leopard geckos. Like I said, to my knowledge, nothing particular in beardies. There's a lot of things that are highly debated in the pet trade that I don't know that I'm comfortable saying that I think that they're problematic genes, because I'm trying to come from science and data. If I don't have data to support it, it's hard for me to say.
Right.
And there's just not enough data out there. This information on spider ball pythons, the study started in 2014, and we're just now getting this type of data, this type of information back out of it.
Right.
We are light years behind what breeders and the actual pet trade are doing.
Right. Yeah, it's really, really interesting how, one person that really blows me away is people like Garrett Hartle. And I've watched just about everything that he's put out about, super dwarf morphs and things like that. And he just blows me away. He knows all of this stuff just right off the top of his head. The guy.
Well, that's because Garrett he's been breeding since he was like a teenager.
Right.
And he's been, and involved in this world from back at the very beginning, when we had the influx of just importation and people weren't captive breeding. So
Right.
that's something that I think we need to really be very careful about how we navigate our place in the reptile world, is being very careful to listen and pay attention, even as scientists, to these people who have this anecdotal data. They've been working with these animals for over 20, 25, 30 years. You think about people like Tom Crutchfield, they're a
Right.
wealth of knowledge that maybe it's not scientific data, but I value it.
Well, it's observational data, and that's, you know,
It's 100%, and they have more of it than we could ever put together in a laboratory.
right. Yeah. So
So I
it's
think that's a big part of what we need to, with science moving forward and connecting with the reptile world. We need to see these people who have been working with animals, and why have they changed their husbandry, and what have they seen as, because
right.
that may be anecdotal data, but that can give us directions of where we need to be looking.
Right. Yeah. It can even, in a lot of cases, rule out husbandry as a cause. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think most. I'm not gonna say most, but I'm sure there's some people out there whose animals will develop problems that are a result of husbandry, but they don't want to admit that it's a result of husbandry, and so it's got to be this. Somebody sold me a bad snake. It's not the fact that I'm not taking care of it properly. Yeah.
Right.
which of
Okay,
course
I
we
see
know never
someone's.
happens.
No, 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 no. We never make husbandry mistakes. No. Honestly, with the things that I think about this a lot, the things that we're doing today that we think are best practices in husbandry 20 years from now will likely be like, what were we thinking?
Right.
Because we don't know what we don't know.
Right. Yeah, unless of course, all these laws pass and we're not allowed to have them anymore, and then
Oh, yeah.
hopefully the next 20 years looks a lot better than the last couple years as far as what we're going for with the I try not to go into that too much. I am going to give a big shout out on US Arc though.
100%, yes.
Yeah.
Incredibly grateful for US Arc and Phil Goss and what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And we have got our first super chat, and this is from Jay Hill. It says, "Great discussion. Love the channel, and remember to hit the thumbs up, y'all." And I apologize ahead of time. Like I said, first live stream. I'm trying to figure out how to get this stuff to pop up in the window, and I don't see any options in there for it. I'm not doing this through YouTube. I'm doing this through vMix into YouTube, and then streaming it so that I've got all the bells and whistles here. But yeah, I forgot for the first gotta have the gecko in there for the first super chat.
I like him. He's adorable.
And for some
My
reason
gecko doesn't dance like that.
And see, I tweaked out my my sound effects somehow too, because there's supposed to be sound effects for you. How did all you guys get turned off? Let's see. Oh, here's the gecko music. There's that. There's that. Turn that on. Okay.
So while we are talking, when you brought up US Arc, and I just want to say, well, I'm not just grateful for US Arc. As a reptile keeper, I'm grateful as a researcher. If some of the laws that are being proposed, like what's in the Lacey Act amendments, if those are passed, that makes our job as researchers infinitely harder.
Right.
And cost considerably more money. So what grant money we do get for doing research with these animals, it's going to end up going into paperwork and coordination with other people that we have to pay to import animals.
Right.
And then we won't be able to take them across state lines. So if we change a lab if one PI, which is a principal investigator, runs a lab, if they move from North Carolina and they change jobs and go to work for another institution, they can't take those animals with them.
Right. Yeah, and that was a really big point of discussion too. And one of Garrett's, I think when he was talking with Phil Goss from US Arc, one of the points that they had made about that, where if we can't transport our animals, it's not just the pet trade that suffers. Yeah. And I'm certain to some degree too, medicine's going to suffer as well, because we do have things, you develop antivenoms and things like that.
Yes. Actually, snake venom has been instrumental in development of a number of drugs. So from blood pressure to erectile dysfunction to prostate issues, like research
Right.
and development has been heavily dependent on venomous animals.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of US ARC, I've got to get that out here real quick. For those of you that don't know, US ARC has got a YouTube channel now. And it was really awesome. I was keeping up. Garrett Hartle's the one that put this together. He did a live stream, and it was awesome to see the community come together on this. He had a goal of $500 for studio equipment for this, and after an hour and a half, they pulled up between $3,000 and $3,500 to put towards it. So it's really big jump in with both feet from the community. They're already up to 3,600 subs on that channel. Needs to be a lot more. That's one thing that we can do, is get we really can, if we get that channel drawing an income, that can all go straight into US ARC too.
Yes.
Once they can get that channel up, get it monetized. If you get that channel up to the point where it's pulling in $10,000 a month, I mean, that's $120,000 a year. That's paying for a lobbyist almost. So
it is. It also would give us opportunity for people like me who are in research, who want to be able to make the data available for everyone and easily digestible for everyone. This would be an avenue where we could do that and keep everyone updated on the new releases.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. I mean, that'd be a good idea if they were open to having, putting together a particular playlist or something. That's all, genetics or some kind of environmental data. For instance, like with the tegus, with the black and white tegu ban out here in North Carolina, we just got slapped with. That goes into effect in August, which means I've got to get a permit for my female tegu.
Correct.
But my understanding is I've watched a couple tegu breeders who have actually tried to breed their animals outside here in North Carolina. And it's my understanding that there's just a really small section of the state right on the southeast coast where they can actually survive, and actually breed, and the rest of the state's climate.
So that would be theoretically. We have no studies done in the state of North Carolina.
Right.
And we had on tegu, breeding, care, and survivorship, vitality.
Right.
We have studies done in Alabama and Florida. And Alabama was determined in that study that they are largely unable to survive. Because even if the adults can burrow far enough to withstand the winter temperatures, the juveniles cannot.
Right.
So it's hard to establish as an invasive species without being able to reproduce.
Exactly. And that's the kind of stuff that we really need to get tied in, with US ARC. I think that's going to give them just as, it's going to give them just as much ammo, really, as the membership numbers. If they can go in there and have, if we can get PhD level biologists in there, because, unfortunately in politics, it's all about accreditation.
Yeah, it is.
So
I don't like it, but it's true. They will listen. They would listen to someone with a PhD before they would listen to someone like Crutchfield or, Garrett, who have been working with animals like this for 25, 30 years.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you've got
just because the PhD has the name.
Yeah. I mean, the credentials go all the way. Just like with
so we do have a question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we have a question about have there been any studies done on kinking in snakes? So I'm sorry, I missed that earlier. Um, yes, there have been studies done on kinking in snakes.
Oh, I see.
Um, they are so far the studies show absolutely no correlation with any particular genes or a particular morph. What the studies have shown is that the kinking is largely related to temperature in with incubation.
Mm.
That's not to say that there aren't correlations. We just don't have the data to show that.
Right. And see, it would be so refreshing if everybody made their decisions based on the data.
Well, we also can't wait for the data to come out either because we're moving forward with animals and animal husbandry, and you can't necessarily make decisions on data that's 20 years old either.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's something, especially out here in that whole episode out in Raleigh, where that
Yeah.
cobra got out and everything, and just as soon as that whole thing hit the news and they found it, um, the county out there was immediately starting to
Yep.
talk about banning animals and whatnot, and unfortunately, it's all people just reacting to something that they're not really familiar with, and you could see it in all of the council meetings. That they're talking about the different animals and the different situations in such a way that it's crystal clear they don't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to pacify people that are afraid of it, and they see an opportunity to make it look like they're doing something. So
I think they also will lean to whatever they're lobbied. I don't know that that's necessarily malicious on their part.
right.
They are going to follow what's put in front of them the most.
Mm-hmm.
And if the people who are the loudest are the people who are terrified without any scientific backing, then that's what they know. Unless we become a stronger force,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they will ever see it any different.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of merit to that. I mean, there was a couple people that I'd seen over the course of the conversations kind of change a little bit. I think some of the people had started to get through to him and just explain to him the fact that, the things that they were planning on doing is the equivalent of, having a cut on your right arm and putting a Band-Aid on your left arm. Yeah. It's like, how are you, this isn't going to fix the problem that you're claiming to address. So, trying to keep everything kind of mated to reality a little bit. But, and stuff like that too. Like I said, we've got the USARK YouTube channel. So anybody that's on here, anybody that sees this, jump straight on after this and get on the USARK YouTube channel, get subscribed to that. And I've also got, for this right here, the usark.org. If you own any kind of animal at all, you definitely...
Or if you just care about them.
Exactly. I mean, there's the organizations that are lobbying for all of this stuff. A lot of them don't think that people should own animals in any way, shape, or form. Cats, dogs, fish, doesn't matter. So many of these organizations, they're making money under the guise of animal welfare, and that there's not a direct correlation to what they're doing in animal welfare. I'm trying to sound politically correct without just going off on a rant.
So I also saw a comment somewhere that I think someone's saying that they're having a hard time hearing you, Tim. So I don't know if you might need to turn your mic up a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. That should be a little bit better. I try not to do that without getting too loud.
Yeah.
Because if I go too loud, then it'll start echoing on everybody.
Gotcha.
So let me know if that's good.
Yep.
It should be a little bit better.
Getting some feedback that it's better. Yep.
We must be delayed.
Cool.
There we go. Yeah, my chat must be delayed or something on here. Like I said, I've got some tweaking to do before I get this thing running 100% the way I want it to. Now, let's see. What else did I have? Oh, yeah. I wanted to plug an event that is going on out here in North Carolina tomorrow that I'm going to be going to. If you guys are familiar with Rob and Jeremy, they do
Reptile Talk?
Yep, Reptile Talk on Brassman Reptiles. Those guys, when they moved down here from up north, they didn't start it, but the North Carolina Herp Society, they're really pushing for membership on that. They're doing monthly events. This one is going to be out at Lake Norman State Park tomorrow, which is Sunday, from noon to 3. And I'm going to put the link to the North Carolina Herp Society's Facebook page. Definitely get on and, follow them. Jeremy and Rob are both really active. I mean, they got Phil Goss from, the president of US ARC on there on a regular basis. They're really up to speed with all the reptile laws and so forth. And I'll definitely be putting all that information down in the description when we get done here. So it may not be down there immediately. Come back in an hour or two after we're done here, and I'll have everything lined out. And
yes. And I think you said, Tim, that you were gonna make the links for the papers that I've referenced here today.
Yes.
Available.
Yep. Yeah. There's links. There is a ton of research that Christina sent me. So there's no shortage of reading material, and especially for a layman like myself.
It can be dense, but take your time, go through it. I'm very passionate about people being able to get a hold of the data for themselves.
Right.
If you have questions about genetics or concerns with any animals that you work with, a quick search on Google Scholar will give you opportunities to find papers and academic journal articles that do pertain to your points of interest.
Right. Yeah. A big thing, a big misconception is some people have, you hear people say all the time, yeah, I do my research. I do my own research. Well, what's your background in? What kind of research are you doing? Are you pulling up a YouTube channel and looking at somebody who's not a researcher, who's, not a biologist, and just listen to them say, oh yeah, this is bad, and you're calling that research and just running with their opinion? It's right. Really behooves everybody. If you're gonna, for me, I'm not a biologist. So anything having to do with biology, I look towards somebody like Christina. I get on and I look at the researchers and read their papers that their peers have already examined to make sure that we're working with the same set of facts. And that has such far-reaching benefits in everything. Not just reptiles, but it's especially important now in the reptile community when, here the last couple months, you've seen a little bit of friction between a couple, popular reptile guys and things like that. That needs to stop. If you guys got a problem with each other, take it offline. It's just like going to work.
I completely agree. We are facing legislation that really is threatening our whole way of life. Mm-hmm. It's in all of our best interest to find ways to work together.
Yeah.
Because the more divided we are, the harder it's going to be for us to actually fight for our rights and be present.
Yep. Yeah. The only way, I mean, if and I remember it being told to me a while back, years ago, where if somebody hears you talking bad about a plumber, for instance, you may have a good plumber right here and you got a bad one right here, and people will hear you talking bad about, this guy does this and he does this. They don't remember the individual names. All they remember is plumber bad, and it's the same thing with reptiles. If people hear us bickering back and forth, this guy's bad because he does this and this guy's bad because he does that, they're not familiar with the people. All they walk away with is reptiles bad, snakes bad, and things like that. So, people that are, if you're starting friction with another channel for views or something like that, or, just trying to kind of up the drama a little bit and make it a little bit more interesting, just stop. I don't care how big you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will cost all of us in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Because,
think that for myself, I tend to um, just put out there the people that I appreciate. So
exactly.
I share their information on social media and I put their faces out because those are the people that I want others to learn from and follow.
Exactly.
I find that a much better strategy for me than putting other people down, is to
Hmm.
draw attention to the people that I appreciate.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's all about building each other up. It's the only way we're
I
going to be
agree.
successful, because there's a lot more people out there in my daily conversations with people. I run into a lot more people that are afraid of my retics than I do people who are interested in them. You know, we're working on changing
Yep,
that.
I can completely relate to that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's not just a retic. It's whether it's a tegu or a
Yeah.
a MBK or a gecko. The number of people that have interacted with my animals and particularly my snakes and just gone, wow, they're not slimy.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah. It's
like,
really,
where did that come from?
it's cool. And Jay Hill had a comment here just a second ago. He said he appreciated the channel bringing positivity to the reptile community. And hey, that's I appreciate that. I appreciate you recognizing that, because when I started this channel, um, it was specifically because when I've always been fascinated with reptiles, and when I first got in, I had such a hard time finding a good mentor. Um, because you don't want to get into dealing with retics or dealing with Nile monitors unless you've got somebody there that's worked with them before that can show you what you're doing wrong before you get your finger taken off. And it was really difficult. And as I was getting into it, you know, of course, the first people that I see that are reptile people, I'd start going to and trying to learn from. And then as you get deeper into the community, you learn more, you see more people, you're like, oh, that person wasn't quite as reputable as I thought he was. You know, he's not as good of an associate to have as I thought he was. Doesn't, you know, so I mean, things evolve over time. It's just so hard to find good, positive people who are really interested in bringing people up into the hobby. So I thought, you know, I'm not as well versed as a lot of people that you'll see, but you know, I've just got the intention of keeping everything positive all the time. So, yeah.
Yep, I appreciate that. I think that's something that we need more of.
Right. Me too. Because it's really hard sometimes not to go on. You know, if I see somebody causing drama, it's really hard for me sometimes to get on there and say, you know, you really probably shouldn't be doing this, because I don't want to throw down a gauntlet on anybody. But
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just, and it's a unique thing to YouTube too, because there's been a couple channels over the years that are notorious for putting out really grisly stuff, and I've seen people bring that to light, and they're very well intentioned. They you know, they're like, this is the kind of content that we don't want. You know, we don't want associated with us. This is not responsible keeping. It's not humane keeping. This is all the clickbait stuff that, you know, gets the negative attention, that gets our animals banned. But the problem is that when you call those channels out by name, now people are going to see them. It just builds those
Yeah.
guys up, gets them higher on the algorithm, gets them out to more people. You know, all of the stuff that we're trying to do for our own channels. And, you know, if you've got people out there that, you know, respect what you say, then, you know, they hear that and they're like, oh, I got to see this. You know, so I just try and stay as far away from all that as I can.
I completely understand. I agree.
Mm. And Cartafago, he says, I stand with Kevin. I'd go to war with him. I'll tell you what, man. Kevin McCurley out at Nerd has really been a lifesaver to me um, and in more ways than probably with most people, because when I first started getting into snakes, I fell into a place where I was working with several hundred adult reticulated pythons, and I was meditating on Kevin's handling videos and watching how he managed those snakes. His older stuff where he was still kind of newer to it, and it looked like he was still really excited about getting all the details out about reading their behavior and how to handle them and so forth. And I just absorbed as much of that as I could, and then I had the opportunity to put it into practice with hundreds of snakes.
Right.
And I got hit a couple times, pretty good, and it sucked, but it was just the coolest thing, because I would put those things into practice and see that they worked, and it saved me from a lot of bad experiences with the animals.
Yes. We do have a question. Carnivorous reptiles, is a varied diet of different prey items important, or even healthier than just feeding one type of prey item? Will there be any deficiencies if they only eat rats, for example? So we do have some level of data that does support a varied diet. I feel like relatively just common sense would probably give us that idea, but we do have data to support that a varied diet does offer them a lot of macro and micronutrients that they can't get if you only feed them one particular thing.
Right.
If you think about a snake in the wild, it's not going to just eat rats. They're largely kind of scavengers. They're going to catch whatever comes by. They're going to eat whatever they come upon.
Right.
And that will vary based on where your particular reptile originates from.
Right.
So I think if you're looking for, which is that Jack? I'm not sure. If you're looking for a best practices, I would find what your reptile eats in the wild and offer them that as close to that as you can.
Right. Yeah.
I know,
absolutely.
particularly for like with my colubrids, we tend to feed them smaller prey in the springtime because that's largely what they would encounter in the wild.
Right. Yeah, that's true. With the caveat there that you don't go out and catch them in the wild if at all possible.
Yeah. Yes, heavens no, because then you're introducing a whole world of pathogens that you have no idea and no way to control.
Exactly.
I don't ever, I'm really not an advocate for live feeding anyway,
Right.
but anything that you
either.
catch from the wild would be, even freezing it, and I know that people have this, I've heard in the reptile community, a lot of people think that if you freeze something, then you can feed it safely. That is not 100% true. That is largely true, just kind of like
A large
like
percentage.
Clorox kills most things.
Yeah.
Yes, so it does kill most things, but we will have some things that can survive a freeze-thaw cycle.
Right.
There's particularly some like nematodes and things that can survive.
Right. Yeah, I put out a video not long ago. I'm a really big advocate of feeding frozen thawed for so many reasons. Not the least of which being at least once or twice a week I'm jumping into one of the social media groups and seeing somebody saying, "Man, my rat just bit my snake. What do I do?" Or my rabbit just kicked my snake's eye out. I mean, it's just, and you get some of these people that really push the oh, it's natural, that's what they do in the wild. I was like, yeah, but you don't put something, it's not combat, this is a pet. You don't force them to engage in combat to live like they would in the wild,
Yeah, I think for me it's safer. For me, it's what I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Not live feeding. I think that live feeding is something that each keeper has to decide for themselves. We don't necessarily have anecdotal data that live animals are a threat,
Right.
but I think that's something that everyone has to come to that decision for themselves. I think that's there's a lot of argument like, okay, what's better, racks or cages?
Right.
I think that that's something that has to be determined per keeper.
Hmm. Yeah, there's
What
pros
works.
and cons to it. Yeah, that's one issue that I do kind of tend to take a position on. I try to stay middle road,
I
and
totally understand.
even still on live feeding too. I mean, I know people that live feed. You know, some animals are more difficult to get to switch over to frozen thawed and things like that. You know, smaller animals are a lot less likely to get injured by their prey item and so forth. But you know, when I've got a 6 pound rabbit that I'm giving to my retic, those animals are
Hmm.
strong. They got big teeth, and my snakes have been known. They don't always grab them by the head and wrap them upright. They'll grab them by a leg. That snake grabs it by a leg. That other leg is going to be kicking just as soon as it can. You know, and I think myself, it's worth it to feed frozen thawed just to avoid injury to the animals. At the very least,
That's for
humanely
sure.
euthanizing them before, have it live. The last time I had a
Mhm.
live rabbit that it was alive a couple minutes before I fed, I euthanized it myself. So
Mhm.
that, it was quick, it was humane, and, you still got pretty much the live feed thing without the live feed risks. So,
Yeah. For me personally, I am way more comfortable feeding frozen thawed.
yeah.
Um, that's just for me. But I also know some people have reptiles that literally will not eat unless their prey is live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I see some
that's
that
that's a
have.
really variable thing.
All right. Let's see. And Fago is
So quite a bit
asking.
asking. Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, he was asking. He says not really reptile related, but his buddy's got several sightings of albino squirrels here in Virginia. Um,
That is correct. There's actually
eyesight.
been a couple of different field studies that there is an actual population of squirrels in Virginia that are heavy. They're heavy for albino.
Right. And he was asking what the if there was any correlation between eyesight, quality of
Albinism and
eyesight, and
eyesight.
albinism. Yeah.
Absolutely. There's been some studies done even in reptiles with albinism that cover the correlation between albinism and pupil deformities and their inability to be able to distinguish color properly and their inability to be able to see properly at nighttime, particularly.
Right. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've never looked into it before, but again, that's something that as we go, as we talk more, I'll get better educated on it.
That's perfectly fine. If we have people that are interested and want to put together, send you questions and things, and we could
Yeah.
do this again. I'm happy to pull together research for anything that anybody's interested in learning about.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, I'd really like to, and especially getting kind of 80 episodes in. I think I've got almost, this close to 80 uploads now. So you come really close to getting into repetitive content. Um, I know, I know some of my
Yeah.
earlier videos. I'm going to kind of put a fresh face on those and put out some more stuff. Basic hook training and stuff like that. Because that was like the first topic that I broached when I first started the channel before I knew what a microphone was and things like that. And you can tell.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was
that's
just
okay. You got to start somewhere.
yep, yep. So it's as we go and get the production value up a little bit, I'm gonna start kind of putting a fresh face on some of that old stuff. But um, let's see. Man, I really think we've hit just about everything we was going to talk about. Um,
That's
I-
awesome. One thing I would like to put out there for anyone who's interested, using Google Scholar, searching
Mhm.
for academic journal articles, don't pay for articles because you will often find links and then you go to the journal and then the journal will tell you have to pay for the article if you want to see it. There will be an author there for you to contact. There's always a primary author contact. Reach out, they will send you a copy of it for free. As
Oh, cool.
scientists, we work really, really hard on the data that we put out to
Right.
put out quality data that we believe in. We want people who are interested to have access to it.
Right.
Very, very rarely will you ever find an author that will not give you access to their article.
That's good to know. Well, I will definitely put all those links down there as we get done here. And
Okay.
yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming around, you know.
Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed the question.
Yeah. I mean, if everybody can bear with me here as I learn the system. Like I said, I really like the engagement, and it's unfortunate because I really like being able to put people up in the main window. And that frustrates me.
Maybe you'll get that figured out.
I'm going to get that figured out tonight if I got to go live and just let everybody sit here and watch me scratch my head. To figure out how to get everything going right. I mean, I do got the sound working on him now.
Mm-hmm. You did.
I did. And I hadn't even got to use my fireworks yet. So we got
I have a feeling there'll be plenty more lives.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna try to get stuff done. I'd like to schedule something every Saturday, and you know that doesn't mean you have to be on every Saturday. You know, we can do this once a month or something like that. But
I mean, if people are interested, I'm happy to come back and cover other things. But I'm
right.
sure you have a wealth of people that you can draw from. That
I do. I'm gonna get
very helpful and informative.
Yeah, I know Nicole out at Ladytus Exotics. She's definitely going to be on here. I'm going to bring her on and do an interview with her.
That'd be awesome.
She's an awesome person, and she handles retics about the same way I do. And she's got a really cool neon sign in her background. So,
oh, cool.
Maybe I'll make her send me a sign like that for me, and then get her on. Yeah, her husband did her up right. She's got a really cool background for her stuff. And you know, Mike, the fellow that was on her live stream earlier, really good guy. I'm sure I'll talk with him at some point. And yeah, I'm gonna try and get Jeremy and Rob on here at some point and just get as many people on as I can. And yeah, the further we get with this, the easier everything will be for me to operate.
Yeah, it will. It will. Yeah. I appreciate you bringing on a number of different people who have different fields and different specialties. I love, one of the reasons I love research so much, I love learning. I love just soaking knowledge up.
Yep. And I'm not the least bit afraid to go into a topic that I know very little about, like genetics. As long as I've got somebody there that I know I can trust that can get the right answers to folks, then yes. You know, if I know somebody's a good person, I'll definitely help get them out there, get their information out there. So cool. All right, guys. Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and commence to putting some links and stuff down here for everything that we talked about today. Make sure that everything down in the description. Of course, I'm still working on finding a good supplier for the shirts. Oh, that side. Everything's backwards on the camera. But I got some Intrepid Exotic t-shirts. I got one made up right now, so that I've got one to wear tomorrow to that event. But I'm going to have those available, you know, all kinds of merch and stuff down the road. But next time we do this, I'm going to plan on doing another one next Saturday, and I'll have everything figured out by then. So
I'm sure you will. I'll pop in and check in on you.
There you go. I really appreciate you coming out and bearing with me for this first. I appreciate you carrying me when I was trying to figure out what I was doing.
I wouldn't say that.
And hopefully you'll be out there tomorrow. If you are, I'll see you then. If not, I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
That's the plan. But if not, yes, we'll catch up.
Cool. All right, guys. And for everybody that came in, thanks a lot. Like I said, we're going to be doing this every Saturday. If you've got anything specific that you'd like to see, that you'd like me to work on getting in here, then by all means put that down in the comments of the video and so forth. Not in the live chat. When it comes up, put it down in the comments of the video so it's a little bit easier to find. And then I'll work on getting anybody on that you guys want to, and approaching any topics that you want me to. So I guess on that note, we're going to take off, and I will see you guys next time.
See ya.
You guys have a good day.
You too.